as I said, the end goal right now has always been a one world government. And pretty much at this point, I would say between the Rothschilds who are at the top, BlackRock underneath, along with, BIS, and the different banking organizations and hierarchy that's in place, they're allowing the WEF, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, who's also a Zionist, to run the show. And this architect that's within the WEF, who's a nutcase, he thinks robots are going to rule the future, run the planet. And he's also from It's Real.
Including every day moving closer and closer to the total control of humanity via AI connection to the human brain. These same people that are behind that, the same people, networks that are behind the hysterical explosion of censorship, of alternative information in Silicon Valley, are all the same people. You look at who controls Facebook, Zionists. Who controls Google? Zionists. Who controls YouTube? Zionist, owned by Google. And these are the people that are shutting down the circulation of information to expose what the same networks are doing.
Severe, tough, real laws that will put these hate mongers away in prison for a long time. All world leaders, all politicians must lead in this effort. Words are not enough. Political speeches are not enough. Laws must be passed, severe, tough, real laws that will put these hate mongers away in prison for a long time. All world leaders
make a point of that's an investment criteria for you.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
Around the world, what do we see, right? Global wave of social unrest, democratization of information, it plays a big role in that. Twitter, Facebook, $100 oil, the deepening deficit, the states moving to fight public employee unions, imbalances, currency issues, the lingering crisis in Europe. What does it all add up to?
Confusion. Uncertainty. Markets don't like uncertainty. Markets like actually totalitarian governments where you have a understanding of what's out there, and obviously the whole dimension is changing now with, as you said, a democratization of countries, and democracies are very messy, as we know in the United States. You have opinions changing back and forth.
One of the big stories that hasn't gone reported at all is the digital transformation of Ukraine. Many people don't know that the Zelensky government has created a laboratory, turned Ukraine into what they call a digital transformation. What is this all about? Dan Cohen just filed this investigation.
Director Samantha Power appeared at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland to promote a digital identification smartphone app called Dia.
And one of the most incredible things that Ukraine has developed over the last few years is an app called Dia that now delivers 120 services to the people of Ukraine.
The Dia app is a central plank in this process. It digitizes and centralizes documents, records, and government and business transactions all into a digital identity. This offers an unprecedented system of surveillance and control. The Dia project is funded primarily by US aid as part of its larger project to implement digital ID systems throughout the world.
Kremlin press staff say neither Russian President Vladimir Putin nor Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev will attend the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland next January. Putin has received his annual invitation to the event amid US and EU asset freezes and visa bans on some of his closest aides of the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The forum host committee says it will not shy away from inviting other Russian senior officials, as it's important to keep the dialogue open. Putin last attended the event in 2009 as the Prime Minister of Russia.
So recently, Klaus Schwab announced that he's going to be stepping down from the World Economic Forum January of 2025, and there's a leading candidate that may replace him, whose books have sold 45 million copies in 65 different languages. His name is Yuval Harari. He's been called the brain of Klaus Schwab. His books have been recommended by Bill Gates, Obama, and many others. This is a guy that's known by many of the world leaders, prime ministers. He wrote a book called Sapiens, sold over 21 million copies. Homo-Gheyness sold over 9 million copies. 21 Lessons for the 21st Century sold over 5 million copies. He's someone you ought to know, because what we learned in the last few years is the amount of power Klaus Schwab has with Davos. If this guy takes over, we have to find out why this gay man, born in Israel in 1976, who received a PhD in history from the University of Oxford in 2002, he could potentially have that much power. We're going to talk about him today. So let's go through him. Very unique guy, definitely different than everybody else. He's been openly gay and married to his husband, Itzik Yahav, in Toronto, 2010. They co-founded Sapienship, a social impact company. He practices Vipassana meditation since 2000, which, by the way, I may have butchered the way you pronounce it, but he meditates 2 hours on a daily basis, a vegan. His position on technology, as of 2023, he owns a smartphone only for emergencies and travel. Few things about him: public speaking, delivered keynote speeches at World Economic Forum at Davos, gave him $1 million during pandemic for donation, he and his husband. He's criticized Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, particularly opposing judicial reform plans. He's done a bunch of different things. So he did an interview with The Guardian, a Q&A format. I want to go through a couple of them that I think it's important to cover. What is your greatest fear? That we will destroy our humanity without even realizing that we've lost. Okay, interesting. Which living person do you most admire and why? On a personal level, the friend who is single mom raising 2 kids by herself during this COVID era, she's a real hero. If a historical personality is what we're talking about, I choose Mikhail Gorbachev, who probably saved the world from World War III. What is your most treasured possession? My body. What would your superpower be? Being able to observe things as they really are. Okay. What did you want to be when you were grown up? Very interesting answer. Loved. What is your guiltiest pleasure? I don't feel guilty about pleasure. When's the last time you changed your mind about something significant? This year with COVID. I'm a big believer in the need for global cooperation on major problems, and watching the world over the past year made me realize it's going to be much, much harder than I thought, and maybe even impossible. Tell us a secret. The people who run the world don't understand it. He's around the people who run the world. So he's saying the people who he's around don't understand how the world runs. Interesting. In another interview, he's asked what comes after, meaning what comes after life. He says, I'm not sure. I haven't managed to go much beyond what was in Homo-Gheyness, in which Harari discussed the emerging religion of dataism. Dataism declares that the universe consists of data flows, and value of any phenomenon or entity is determined by its contribution to data processing. He's talked about the rise of the useless class, us. Harari discusses the impact of AI on a workforce, suggesting that AI and automation will render many jobs obsolete. He's not alone there. Other people believe it as well. He introduces the concept of a useless class, referring to a large segment of the population that could become unemployed due to technological advancement. He emphasized the need to develop new economic, social, and educational systems to support those affected by these changes as traditional job structures are transformed. We got to learn a little bit about his father and the relationship, which is kind of a little bit gray. We don't know much about it. From the age of 8, Harari attended a school for bright students 2 bus rides away from his family's house in Kiryat Ata. Yuval's father, who died in 2010, was born on a kibbutz and maintained a lifelong skepticism about socialism. His work as a state-employed armaments engineer was classified by the standards of the town. The Harari household was bourgeoisie and bookish. They were rich. They were known as having money and being successful. He built out of wood blocks and formica tiles a huge map of Europe on which he played war games of his own invention. Harari told this individual that interviewed him that during his adolescence, against the backdrop of his first infidel, he went through a period when he was a kind of a stereotypical right-wing nationalist. He recalled his mindset: Israel as a nation is the most important thing in the world, and obviously we are right about everything, and the whole world doesn't understand us and hates us. So we have to be strong and defend ourselves. He laughed, you know, the usual stuff. This next part's a little bit interesting, so brace for impact. One reason he chose to study outside of Israel was to start a new life. As a gay man, on weekends he went to London nightclubs. I think I tried, he says this, ecstasy a few times, and he made dates online. He set himself the target of having sex with at least 1 new partner a week. Very aggressive, competitive. To make up for lost time and also understand how it works, because I was very shy, he laughed. Very strong discipline. He treated each encounter as a credit and a ledger. So if 1 week I had 2, 2, and next week we're 0, I'm okay. Like an accountant, CPA, very interesting. He says here, within the next century or two, we humans are likely to upgrade ourselves into gods. You could be a god and change the most basic principles of the evolution of life. He says, I titled the book Homo-Deus because we really are becoming gods. In the most literal sense possible, we are acquiring abilities that have always been thought to be divine abilities, in particular the ability to create life, and we can do with that whatever we want. The main products of the future economy will not be food, textiles, and vehicles, but rather
the big product of the 21st century are going to be bodies and minds.
So where's it going with this? I mean, here's what it says. Harari's vision for the future: dictatorship. One of the dangers of 21st century is that machine learning and artificial intelligence will make centralized systems much more efficient than distributed systems, and dictatorships might become more efficient than democracies.
The revolution in information technology will make dictatorships more efficient than democracies.
Dictatorships might become more efficient than democracies. Do you want a dictatorship? He's saying it may be more efficient. If you don't want him, this guy may be the leader of World Economic Forum. This is what he's going to be talking about when he's selling books. They sell. When he writes books, tens of millions of copies get sold. You need to kind of know what these guys have in mind for vision for you. I mean, listen, if you're inspired already, stick around. You're going to be motivated even more. Here's one for you. I strongly believe that given the technologies we are now developing, within a century or two, at most, our species, you, will disappear. You're going to disappear. I don't think that in the end of the 22nd century, the Earth will still be dominated by Homo sapiens. Here's why he thinks there's a big challenge with the useless class based on how he sees it. Watch this. The useless class possesses a threat to community peace primarily because they will lack both a means of income. How are you going to make money? Everything's being done better than you and AI. And a sense of purpose. If you're not making money, you're not doing a job, what is the purpose of life? Why do I exist? What can I do? All the other machines are doing a better job than me. That's kind of what he's talking about. The emergence of two distinct classes, these employed in the AI-driven roles and unemployed, the useless class, will exacerbate social inequalities and could lead to discontent and unrest. Even if governments provide financial support to the unemployed, the psychological effects of lacking purpose need consideration, such as how to address their potential boredom and dissatisfaction. Harari highlights a fundamental educational challenge. The uncertainty of future job markets makes it difficult to determine what skills should be taught in schools today. It's actually a good point. What should we be teaching in schools today? While AI revolution might create new jobs, these are likely to be high-skilled positions, leaving those previously in lower-skilled jobs unable to transition easily. Drugs and computer games. You ready for this? The biggest question, what to do with all these useless people? Okay.
Now we see the creation of a new massive class of useless people.
The problem is boredom and what to do with them when they are worthless. My best guess is a combination of drugs and computer games. Really? Drugs and computer games? And the whole UBI thing, remember when Andrew Yang was talking about UBI? Here's what he talks about UBI. UBI involves taxing large corporations and the wealthy to fund regular, unconditional payments to all citizens, aiming to provide a safety net for everyone. So let me tell you how I process this. I process it in a couple different ways. One, I'm a man of faith. I think the future looks bright, period. I'm optimistic. I'm team human. I think you and I are wired in a way to consistently look for new solutions and way to rewire ourselves. And he's not for somebody that says, recreate yourself, my ass. That's his line. He doesn't believe you can recreate yourself. If your job as a truck driver is replaced by a machine that can do your job, et cetera, how are you going to go replace yourself is what he's saying. Now, the point is right if you're not proactive way before that comes. So, just like jobs, if right now your kid's about to go to college and you say, son, you should go get a degree on being a, great typewriter. Go be a great person that can type 80 words per minute. What value does that have today? You may say, well, I want you to go start a newspaper company. A newspaper company, you wouldn't ask your kid to do that today, but maybe 80 years ago, different story. 100 years ago, working for the radio, are you kidding me today? What are you going to do working for radio? You want to go work for radio today? It's not the same as it was before, right? So you need to adjust on career planning for yourself, your company, your kids, your family. These are the types of conversations you need to be having. But just so you know, if you are going to live your day-to-day life and not pay attention to who is coming up, to having power of making decisions that may dictate the way you live, and you're not paying attention to this, then you deserve what they end up doing to you. It is our job to be proactive and study these folks and see what they're imposing, because many, tens of millions of people listen to a guy like this and say, this guy went to Oxford. He must know what he's talking about. You know what? Dictatorship is better than democracy. I think that's what we should do. Yeah, you know what? We should tax all these big companies. Forget these rich people. They're useless idiots anyways. They're worthless. Yeah, I'm with this guy. If you don't have a counter argument for this, and he's got that influence, he's eventually going to have influence over you, your kids, your family, and your community. So you got to be aware of what's going on, because only the paranoid survive.
We are now in a new era of wars, and unless we re-establish order fast, then we are doomed. When you witness such things, what it does to you is it just breaks your trust in humanity itself. In this sense, this is a crime against humanity in the deepest sense. Not just killing humans, but just losing all trust in humanity. And I hope that, you know, Israel now is in a battle not just to disarm Hamas, to protect its territory, to protect its civilians. It's in a battle to protect its humanity and its sanity. And I hope that we win all these battles, not just one of them.
Good evening, Mr. Harari. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. My question indeed is a bit more personal. You've called yourself a prophet tonight, or you used the word.
I repeatedly denied that. I mean, all this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news.
Yuval Noah Harari, a spokesperson and advisor for the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab's right-hand man, people say. I don't think I've ever seen somebody encompass the Antichrist and the goals of the Antichrist more than this person. This guy is pushing for practically new religions based off technology. He calls and openly says that we're going to be having entities living among us that are not human, and then he's pushing and absolutely supporting in multiple video interviews that we need to be surveyed and have surveillance that is technology implanted under our skin. I mean, it's shocking. And not only that, as you see in the opening clip, he is openly, absolutely, completely against the God of the Bible and against the belief in God.
And I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. But there is a concern that...
Which is then very strange, because then he mixes on out of that into saying, well, we're going to have religions that are going to come out of Silicon Valley in the future, religions of technology. I mean, this guy is so strange. It's like the weirdest thing ever.
The next big projects of humankind will be to overcome old age and death, and to basically upgrade humans into gods. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, basically the first thing God does is to create animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. We are now trying to gain this divine ability to ourselves, and in a way we are even reaching beyond what ancient religions ascribed to the gods. Because the gods, like Jehovah in the Bible, they could create only organic beings. If you're a creationist, and you look at the world, so all these animals, all these plants, God created them, and they're all organic. Now humans are trying to do better than that. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. We don't have any answer in the Bible what to do when humans are no longer useful to the economy. You need completely new ideologies, completely new religions, and they are likely to emerge from Silicon Valley or from Bangalore and not from the Middle East. And they are likely to give people visions based on technology. Everything that the old religions promised, happiness and justice and even eternal life, but here on earth with the help of technology and not after death with the help of some supernatural being. That in 200 years, Earth is dominated by entities which are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals. Different bodies, different brains, different minds. Artificial intelligence and technology in general are going to break out of this limited realm of organic biology and create something completely new. Surveillance, people could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century. Maybe in a couple of decades, when people look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin. Because really we haven't seen anything yet. I think that the big process that's happening right now in the world is hacking human beings, the ability to hack humans, to understand deeply what's happening within you, what makes you go. For that, the most important data is not what you read and who you meet and what you buy, it's what's happening inside your body. So we had these two big revolutions, the computer science revolution, or the infotech revolution, and the revolution in the biological sciences. And they are still separate, but they are about to merge. They are merging around, I would say, the biometric sensor. It's the thing, it's the gadget, it's the technology that converts biological data into digital data that can be analyzed by computers. And having the ability to really monitor people under the skin, this is the biggest game changer of all. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. Mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition?
What you see and why it's difficult, perhaps, to preview the future at this time.
Well, we are now almost like gods in terms of our powers of creation and destruction. We now have the power to create new life forms, but also to destroy much of life on Earth, including ourselves. Instead of uniting in order to face these common challenges to our species, we are dividing, we are fighting each other more and more. The evolution of life on Earth took something like 4 billion years. 4 billion years to reach these plants and to reach us, human beings. So ChatGPT and all these wonders, they are the amoebas of the AI world. What would T-Rex look like? It's the first technology ever that can create new ideas. Gutenberg printed the Bible in the middle of the 15th century. The printing press printed as many copies of the Bible as Gutenberg instructed it, but it did not create a single new page. It had no ideas of its own about the Bible. Is it good? Is it bad? How to interpret this? How to interpret that? AI can create new ideas, can even write a new Bible. Throughout history, religions dreamt about having a book written by a superhuman intelligence. In a few years, there might be religions that are actually correct. That just think about a religion whose holy book is written by an AI. That could be a reality in a few years. And you have this discussion for thousands of years about what humans really are. Are they immaterial soul or an immaterial mind? Or are they embodied beings, embodied entities? This was a major philosophical topic that you see, say, in ancient Christianity. This discussion that Jesus and the first Christians, influenced by Jewish traditions, they believed very firmly that humans are bodies, which is why Christ rises in the body. He's resurrected in the body. And when Christ initially talks about the kingdom of heaven, he means the kingdom of heaven on earth. He tells his followers that there'll be this perfect kingdom here on earth, with trees and stones and people. Over time, under the influence especially of Platonic philosophy, Christianity drifted away from this view of humans as embodied and placed greater and greater emphasis on the immaterial soul or mind. It imagined that the body is dirty, the body is animalistic, the body, there is something wrong with it. And when you die, you are not coming back in the body. Your soul is liberated from the material body, and it goes not to a kingdom on earth, but to heaven, which is a completely immaterial realm.
If you could change one thing in the world by magic today, what would it be?
I would change human understanding of themselves to place more emphasis on our shared biological reality and less on all the kind of fictional stories that we create with our minds. If we could just let go of these stories for a little while, and again go back to the level of the body, we would realize that we are all the same. All of us share the same biology, irrespective of our ideology and religion and whatever. And if we remember that, and let go a little of our ideological and religious fantasies, that's the basis to create a better world for everybody. So the Christian fantasy became to completely disconnect from the body. And this remained a fantasy for thousands of years. The operating system of every human culture in history has always been language. In the beginning was the word. We use language to create mythology and laws, to create gods and money, to create art and science, to create friendships and nations. Gods are also not a biological or physical reality. Gods too is something that we humans have created with language by telling legends and writing scriptures. What would it mean for human beings to live in a world where perhaps most of the stories, melodies, images, laws, policies, and tools are shaped by a non-human, alien intelligence? Already today, in games like chess, no human can hope to beat a computer. What if the same thing happens in art, in politics, economics, and even in religion? In future, we might see the first cults and religions in history whose revered texts were written by a non-human intelligence. And of course, religions throughout history claimed that their holy books were written by a non-human intelligence. This was never true before. This could become true very, very quickly, with far-reaching consequences. The new AI tools would have an immense influence on human opinions and on our worldview. People, for instance, may come to use, are already coming to use, a single AI advisor as a one-stop oracle and as the source for all the information they need. No wonder that Google is terrified, and for a good reason. Why bother searching yourself when you can just ask the oracle to tell you anything you want? You don't need to search. So for thousands of years, we humans basically lived inside the dreams and fantasies of other humans. We have worshipped gods, we pursued ideals of beauty, we dedicated our lives to causes that originated in the imagination of some human poet or prophet or politician. For thousands of years, prophets and poets and politicians have used language and storytelling in order to manipulate and to control people and to reshape society. I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. Evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design.
You know, if you care about truth, then you don't care about consequences, because if you care about consequences, you won't deliver the truth, because you'll be saying, this is what I know has happened, and I know I should put this out, but what are the consequences for me? Considering consequences are a prison that allows these people to do what they do, because their currency of control is intimidation.
Hey guys, if you want to watch more clips, click here.
And if you want to watch the full podcast, click right here.